Tonight we're in London and this is Question Time. And welcome to the first edition of 2016, whether you're watching on television, listening on Radio 5 Live. Welcome to our audience here and, of course, to our panel sitting round our shiny new table, the Conservative Skills Minister, Nick Boles, Labour's Cat Smith, who worked for Jeremy Corbyn, was elected an MP last year and is now Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities, the UKIP MEP Patrick O'Flynn, who stood down as the party's economic spokesman after criticising Nigel Farage, the Sunday Times journalist and film critic Camilla Long, and the Sun columnist and former editor Kelvin MacKenzie. And I should, as always, just remind you that if you want to get involved in this debate, we're now on Facebook, Twitter, our hashtag is BBCQT. You can follow us at BBC Question Time. You can text comments to 83981 and press the red button to see what others are saying. So let the argument begin. And our first question tonight from Richard Salmon, please. Richard Salmon.
Are junior doctors justified in taking strike action?
Very straightforward, simple first question for the year. Are junior doctors justified in taking strike action? Nick Boles.
Well, the first thing to say is, of course, they absolutely have the right to. I'm disappointed that they've chosen to, and I fear that they have been misled by the BME leadership. Because what we're trying to propose is a new contract that is safer than the existing contract. The existing contract allows junior doctors to work for 91 hours in a week. That is 6 15-hour days, and that is unsafe. The new contract we're proposing would allow them to work for 72 hours a week, would reduce the number of consecutive nights, reduce the number of consecutive weekends, and I believe it would be a safer contract, but also it would give junior doctors the same level of pay as they're getting now, unless they're working unsafe hours. We're not trying to save money on this contract. We're trying to make a safer contract that will deliver a 7-day-a-week NHS. And I hope we can persuade junior doctors to ignore the BMA, to come back to work and to agree on a new contract.
Is the... Boris Johnson said the BMA was in the grip of advanced Corbynitis. Is that your view?
Well, I mean, I think it is true that a large number of people involved with the BMA leadership are very much self-identified as left-wing people. But I don't want to insult junior doctors, who, after all, are some of the most qualified and educated people in the land, with thinking that they're not making up their own minds about this. I just fear that sometimes the information given to them has not been strictly accurate. There was a calculator on the BMA website, which they've now taken down because it was misleading. It was pretending that certain things were going to happen under our proposals that were not going to happen, and it's important that people are given the true information before making their choices.
Okay. A point from you, and then I come to Cat Smith. Yes. Yes?
I'm a junior doctor, and I would very much like to say I have not been misled by the BMA. I have one of my medical training gives me the opportunity to evaluate evidence, and I have looked at the government's proposals and I have looked at what the BMA have said, and so categorically 98% of the people that voted for a strike were not misled by the BMA. Secondly, I would like to say we all want a safe contract, and thank you for saying that we want a safe contract. There are two main issues regarding the contract which are particularly concerning junior doctors. The first one is the safeguards that are currently in place, which the current Health Secretary proposes to take away. I know that he suggests that there is a guardian that will be put into place. However, currently we have financial penalties that are put on trusts. If junior doctors, as a group of junior doctors, are seen to be overworking, these trusts face financial penalties. These will be taken away. The current proposals do not offer that.
All right.
The current proposals also do not show that there is a robust mechanism to ensure safeguards. Thirdly, the current proposals do not say that this is an independent guardian that will be jointly appointed with the BMA.
All right, well, there's a lot of points there, and I'm not sure people will follow all of them. Camilla Long.
I'm afraid I would have to say that I'm completely horrified that doctors are prepared to strike. I think it's, you know, doctors took an oath, a Hippocratic oath, that they would not do anything to bring harm to their patients, and I think they've totally abandoned the duty of care by doing so. I find it very, very difficult to get past this point. I don't understand how, as a doctor, you would be perfectly happy to leave your patients and even go up to the point where emergency services are potentially going to be affected by this. I think it's a disgrace the way that both Jeremy Hunt and the junior doctors have allowed this to become a political football. Nowhere else in the world does healthcare become politicised in this way. And I think, you know, yes, what would you like to say to me?
I would like to say to you, have you
no,
been
hold on, you've had your say. Do you
Yes.
think when she says it's dangerous what's being suggested...
And I'll tell you...
when she says it's
yes.
dangerous, is it wrong even in those circumstances to strike?
Yes, I think it's wrong to strike because I think that when you strike, you are definitely putting your patients at risk. Whereas you're, you know, you don't quite know.
All right, Cat Smith.
Nobody wants to see our junior doctors on strike, and least of all those junior doctors, because the junior doctors I know went into that profession to care for people. I don't know any junior doctors who went into it for the money. They went into it to support people at their hour of need. The BMA is not a radical trade union. This is a trade union that has not been on strike for 40 years. This is a strike that has been pushed by Jeremy Hunt, the Tory Health Secretary, who is refusing to get back round that negotiating table and speak to the junior doctors, who frankly are doing this because they want their patients to be safe. They don't want to be working longer hours. We don't want to go back to those bad old days of the 1990s
that to the
with
person in the
tired
street,
doctors.
First of all, we don't know what the doctors are striking about. To me,
They've been very
it looks
clear.
like
They have been very, very clear.
To me, it looks like you're striking about money.
No,
it looks like you're striking about pay.
Let's be clear. This is a strike that is being caused by the BMA with the vast support of junior doctors, because the contract that's being offered is going to force junior doctors to work longer hours because the financial incentives that is currently in place to stop hospitals overworking our junior doctors is not included in this contract. And as for junior doctors who are on strike, well, actually, a lot of them are unable to go on strike because they're scheduled to work emergency hours. And I've seen examples. This woman here is indicating that she's one of these junior doctors. And there's been junior doctors on picket lines who have left those picket lines to support people with first aid, because actually what they want is the best for the NHS, and they want the best for the patients that have been served by the NHS.
They simply can't, because they're striking.
I hear from the man up there with spectacles at the back, and the second row from the back. You, sir. Yes.
Hi, yeah, I come from both angles because I'm a patient, and actually having appointments at the weekend would be very, very convenient to me. I also have a girlfriend who's a junior doctor, and I think generally as a society we don't value doctors enough, and actually those comments, Camilla, all they do is make doctors feel like they're under appreciated, and they make them feel like they don't actually want to do the job. And surely we, as a society, don't want our doctors to feel like that. I mean, Camilla, would you want to be treated by a doctor who felt they were undervalued and underpaid?
No, obviously I wouldn't want to be treated by a doctor who felt undervalued and underpaid. However, I really don't believe that I spoke to a friend of mine who was a junior doctor yesterday, and he was perfectly honest with me, and he said what it came down to was the terms of the pay. And the fact of the matter is that because the pay is, not good enough, you're going to have to work extra hours in order to make it up.
Patrick Flynn.
Well, I just have to disagree with the gentleman in the audience who says doctors are undervalued. I think if you look at the opinion polls, doctors are held in incredibly high esteem, and the NHS is the most popular public service in the world. But with such high esteem, I do think comes a level of responsibility, including actually on government ministers, that it's not unreasonable when we deliver health care the way we do in this country, which is fantastic and which is part of who we are as a country, that the people on the political side who are accountable for the spending try and make sure that it modernises, that it keeps pace with the times, right? So delivering, quote, a 7-day-a-week NHS, slightly insulting because, of course, it is 7 days, but he means at an appropriate and even level of resources and care. That's not an unreasonable aspiration, right? But the problem is the NHS now is under enormous strain with increased demand. The time to do these reforms, I think, was 15 years ago when all the money was pouring in under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, and the contracts drawn up then were widely perceived to have wrecked productivity in the NHS. So I think that at the moment, Jeremy Hunt, I don't think he's ill-meaning, but the government needs to identify extra resources. It made blithe comments during the election about $8 billion a year extra without a plan. I mean, we in UKIP were going to put a third of the net savings from leaving the EU, $3 billion a year extra in. We would look at putting some of the foreign aid savings into actually funding the NHS. So he's asking it to run when it's struggling to walk because of the sheer demand on NHS and people who work in it.
The person up there on the third row from the back, yes, you.
I'm also a junior doctor.
You're a junior doctor. Yep.
As well.
Is there
I think there are a
anybody
few
in the audience who isn't
tonight.
a junior doctor?
And I just want to go back to this 7-day services issue. We provide a 7-day emergency service. In the press, again and again and again, and coming from the government, there has been this demand for a 7-day service. We provide a 7-day emergency service. What is not provided is a 7-day elective service. If that was to be provided, our finite resource, we are a finite resource of trained doctors, would be spread over 6 or 7 days instead of 5 at the same
just
level.
explain the elective service.
So this is things like outpatient clinics and non-emergency surgery. So the number of doctors working, at the moment we do have fewer doctors at the weekends because they're providing emergency services only. If we were to be spread throughout the 7 days, that would deplete our numbers Monday to Friday. That would sacrifice patient safety because we are pushed already. And I don't think
let's
that's
just take that point. Kelvin MacKenzie.
Well, I presume you could hire more doctors. I mean, I suppose there's nothing wrong in doing that. I think one of the issues that has emerged in all this is the enormous hours which doctors work. I mean, the idea of 92 hours being reduced to 72, I don't want to see a junior doctor at a hospital. I mean, by the way, when you use the word junior doctor, you mean junior doctor up to registrar. I mean, you start at 23,000, you go up to 70,000. It's not as though you're on poverty street. So the issue I have here is I would be in favour of reducing the 72 hours down to what I consider a kind of normal working week, which would be 50 or 55. Do you want to be treated by a doctor that has done 92 hours? I am wholly and completely in line with Jeremy Hunt on this issue. The truth about the matter is that the doctors have been, there is about apparently 1% of the doctors in junior doctors actually work these kinds of hours in order to get the overtime money. That day must end. You've had an 11%, I mean, there's enough of you in the audience, enough junior doctors in the audience. I've never seen so many doctors actually in my life. Right? You've got an 11% pay hike. You're already on something between 23 and 70,000. As far as I'm concerned, I have never seen the NHS better, either at GP level or at hospital level for my immediate family. It's utterly fantastic. And my advice is get back to work. Take what you can in this latest round of talks, which I think are going on today, and get back to work. If I were Jeremy Hunt, I'd tough you out, because I don't think you've got the public on your side, and I think this strike is on the edge of collapse.
All right. Let me hear from somebody. You were applauding that point. Do you want to? What's your view about it? The man in the very front.
If I get sick at the weekend, I want to be treated at the weekend, and I don't believe that the doctors who are very well paid, I don't believe that I should have. There's more chance of me dying at the weekend, so that's a fact. And it's
doctors, please stop waving your arms.
Yes, I find it a bit irritating. The doctors are interfering with the patients who are trying to say something. I don't think that the facts are there. People do die, are more likely to die at the weekend because there's not enough consultants and relevant doctors in the hospitals.
Okay.
So that's
are there any more patients rather than doctors who want to just comment on this? Because they're large and clearly we've got more than... Yes, you, sir.
I just think it's reflective of the cynicism of our government, where they're prepared to go after good, noble doctors who are there to give a service, and they're saying that they're not being paid enough. Well, I'm happy to see this doctor paid a lot of money because they do a job which I'm happy to pay for, rather than someone in the city making money for the sake of it. It's just absurd, the cynicism we have.
Okay. And you, and I'll come to you, Chris. Yes, brief point.
I would like to just challenge Camilla, and I beg your pardon, I can't remember your name. Horrified that you should be misleading our public, might I say. And with you, I think this issue about the BMA misleading us, I want to point out to the public of this country that Jeremy Hunt and the government has systematically misled the entire country. This man talking about dying at the weekend, I am horrified to hear that. Really. People have actually died because of what Jeremy Hunt has said in Parliament about 11,000 deaths each year, which he attributes to junior doctors. I am so sad that you have taken that on from this government. It is not true. The paper that he quoted from, let me tell you, he got the data a month before that paper came out. Let's ask why. What he regarded as a weekend was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That is not a weekend. A weekend is Saturday and Sunday, is it not? He said that people were dying on Saturdays and Sunday. Now, if you look at that paper, on a Saturday and a Sunday, actually less people were dying. And he spoke about it as though we were only speaking about people dying on the weekends.
Right.
When the paper looked at 30 days...
Don't wag your finger at me. I think you've made the point. Chris Boles. Nick Boles, sorry. Nick Boles.
Nobody seems to know my name, but that doesn't matter. I'm sure that this evening there are going to be occasions when I'm going to be asked to defend cuts in public spending. And I just think it is kind of important that everybody understands that if the contract that we are proposing comes into force, we will not save a penny. The amount that we spend on junior doctors' pay will not be 1 penny less than it is now. So how can it be such an appalling contract if it's not going to be saving any money and it's going to be reducing maximum hours from 91 to 72? The truth is that what we're trying to do is to even the patterns of work so that, yes, there are more junior doctors working during normal hours during the weekend. And obviously there is a debate about these figures, but I think that there are lots of people who do believe these figures, which suggest that you are 20% more likely to die from a stroke if you have that stroke at a weekend. That you are more likely in childbirth to lose a child if you have your child at the weekend. And I think that a lot of us know from our own lives that, frankly, if you have something that isn't absolutely an emergency, you actually try and wait for the week because you know that the consultant will be there. You know that there'll be the full depth of resource, that it won't be a junior anaesthesiologist, it will be a consultant anaesthesiologist who's looking after you. We are not trying to save money on this. We're putting more money in the NHS. We're just trying to get a better service for the British people who are paying a lot for the NHS.
That's Nick.
Just because, Nick, you believe something does not mean that it's true. And we've heard from some junior doctors tonight who've made that very clear. And when it comes to decisions about the NHS, I'm going to go with the junior doctors who work very hard in our NHS to deliver these services. And I just want to pick up on a few things. There were some comments made about the public support. Junior doctors, I do believe you've got the public support. I think that you absolutely have that. And you have my support on this issue. And as for this fact about weekends being more likely to die, it's nonsense. It was based on rubbish data, frankly. And also, to explain it in layman's terms, if you're sick on a Wednesday, then you don't think about it twice, you'll go along to hospital. But if you get sick at a weekend, there's quite a lot of evidence that suggests that you think twice. So by the time you arrive at that hospital, you're much sicker than you would have been had you arrived on a Wednesday. So that's why the figures might look slightly different.
So if you had 7-day doctors,
you wouldn't have
felt
that.
Sick, you'd be all right going in?
We do have 7-day NHS.
All right, okay. Anyway, we're going to move on now because we've had an airing of that and we've got a lot of questions in the lists here and we're not just negotiating this doctor's deal on Question Time.